Welcome to Three Steps to Kayaking program, where we gather to help with building confidence and confidence on the water, sponsored by TRAK Kayaks. My name is Hans Trupp. I am a TRAK pilot and a longtime outdoor educator, and going to be moderating this conversation today. I am hailing from Vancouver Island in British Columbia at 49 degrees north, and we're super excited to bring this show to you. If you're new to the show, this is where we eddy out as paddlers and we share knowledge of tools and gear to help equip you to get on the water. We gain skills collectively to build your confidence and competence as a sea kayaker, and we help to bring all of our learnings together and help develop sea personship for more fun, safe, and rewarding experiences in the water. So let's get started right away. I am super excited about today's presentation. We're here to speak about a Dominica circumnavigation, an account of the first recorded circumnavigation of a Caribbean treasure. I couldn't be more excited about this. And so we are connecting, like I said, directly with the island of Dominica. It's, for those that don't know, it's geographically situated as part of the Windward Island chains and the Lesser Antilles archipelago, right in the Caribbean Sea. And we've got two special guests there I want to introduce right now. First of all, Kerry Alleyne, a Dominican, a native Dominican. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Excellent.
It's a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you, Kerry. And you're, just to introduce you, you're one of the team, one of two of you, you and Weston by your side there, were the two paddlers who recently did a full circumnavigation of Dominica.
Yes, indeed. And yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So before we dive into the full introduction of both of you, I just want to touch base with you, Kerry, first, is that you're a native Dominican.
Yes, I am.
And kayaking is relatively new to the culture, as I understand.
Yes.
Yeah, what
certainly.
really, what inspired you to take on kayaking and to do something as bold as a circumnavigation of a Windward Island?
Well, I would have to say that finding the right partner, because as a young boy growing up in Dominica, we were always told if you go in the waters, I know everybody was looking at Jaws and these type of movies, and everyone is afraid of the ocean. And then every time my friends would be like, "Don't go swimming out too far." But me, I couldn't even swim. So I was one of the people that was like restricted to the ocean, to the underwater world. I pretty much didn't know anything. And then it all started when I worked at a dive center, but I was working there part-time, and gradually I got into the tourism business and started kayaking. And when my friends saw me doing it, they all followed. And then before I knew it, it was a big thing. And then everyone was like, "Oh, it's not as bad as they say it was." There were a few, experiences where we saw like fins coming near the kayaks, and guys would like hog onto each other thinking it was sharks, and they were dolphins. So getting that experience, we always thought that to see dolphins, in person, we would have to go to SeaWorld, we would have to travel overseas. We have so much in the form of underwater wildlife in abundance here. And it was a shame back then that we didn't know too much. So I was misinformed. And now getting that opportunity, just as I gradually got more experience, I wanted to push my limits and go further. And meeting Wes, I actually found that partner where we could do that circumnavigation. And it's something that I really dreamt about as a kid.
Awesome. Wow, really great takeaway already. You've already touched on one thing that we talk about a lot in sea kayaking or any risk management scenarios, the difference between real risk and perceived risk. And, interpreting the dolphin dorsal fins as life-threatening shark fins, you've broken down the real risk and perceived risk right away. Awesome. And I think the other great thing you're touching on is the importance of having a really good partner when you're on the water for safety, somebody that you feel comfortable and confident with. And you've already identified that you've gone from a non-swimmer to a circumnavigator in a short period of time. What's the How's that impacted your life?
Well, it certainly has developed a lot more confidence, self-esteem, and I would say, you know, just not being afraid of limitations. A lot of us, you know, when we're, let's say, from a third world country on small island like Dominica, we only get to see stuff on the television. We don't really get to experience it. So when we get to see a local person doing it, then we get inspired by that. And I was happy to be, you know, part of that process where others could look at me and get inspired. And it has definitely done a lot more than that for me. I definitely started opening up to people, meeting different people from around the world and sharing my culture with them. And it's just a wonderful experience. Yes.
Wow, awesome. Really great. Yeah, we'll come back and we'll talk more about how, you know, pushing that comfort zone, how it's really supports your vitality. But boy, we're getting real fast here. This is really great. Weston, I don't want to leave you out here. You're the founder of a guest house based on water sport activities. You caught the sea kayaking bug early, and it really inspired you to open up a kayak center in the Caribbean Sea. I know your background and your credentials include BC rating. Sounds like you've got a 3-star rating and a level 1 coach. What inspires you to bring sea kayaking to Dominica and to open a place like that and support it with something like a guest house?
I've been in the Caribbean since '97, and I first started kayaking in 2003. And the first time I went, I was sold. I was in Seattle on vacation. I said, I want to open a sea kayak business in the Caribbean. And my friend said, well, first you got to learn how to sea kayak. and then you got to become an expert in the Caribbean. So that's what I set a course on doing. But most of my kayaking has all been solo. It's just not a popular sport here. So I initially started taking people out because I wanted people to keep up with me and kayak with me. But I think I'm probably preaching to the choir here. You know, there's that, when you first get out on the sea, it's just a different connection. There's just something so unique about being out on that different element, and you know, pushing yourself. It helps you in so many ways, health-wise, you know, paddling. And I've been doing a little reading recently, The Deep by James Nestor, and I just started Blue Mind. I think it's Wallace Nichols.
Yes.
Just to see what these deep-rooted connections to the, you know, bodies of water are all about, because I see it time and time again. The majority of people in the Caribbean I've taken out, sea kayaking isn't a popular thing. It's seen as something that can be difficult, that's very tiring, that's very hard, risky. And I get non-swimmers out, you know, sharing a tandem kayak, and they just have that aha moment and absolutely love it. And so sharing that passion and seeing that passion spark within others and others wanting to pursue kayaking feeds my passion to get more people out there.
Awesome, great. Well, we've got a whole host of folks on the line here to join you, Kerry and Weston. Thank you both for taking the time to share your stories here. We're going to dive into the circumnavigation story in just a moment, but to fill you in, we've got folks from Oyster Bay, BC, Long Beach, California, Ontario, Puget Sound, Arlington Heights, Illinois, Chicago, Austin, Texas, Burnaby, BC, Ottawa Valley. We've got folks from all around here. So I want to thank all of you for joining us as well. And so I also want to just for people who are interested in just a glimpse while we're doing this at interactive way, I'm going to link into the guest house that is located on Dominica that Weston runs there. You'll find that in the chat. Might give you some images to connect with about that. But so you guys have just done a circumnavigation all around Dominica Island. We'll talk about that. What's next? What do you do after that? What's on the horizon for the two of you as paddling partners?
Can you repeat that, Hans? I think a cloud went overhead. We got a little bit of garble there. What was the question again?
So what's in the lineup in surfing terms? What's next? What's the next trip you two have planned together?
Great. I'll talk a little bit about, I'm also into open water swimming. And we have two people who want to cross the Martinique Channel. So we'll be providing kayak support to them. That'll be sometime in 2022. I'm not sure when. And then also when we have our TRAK kayaks, we have our eye on St. Lucia. But that's a lot further down the road. And I think Kerry's got his eye on a few things too.
Oh, yes. When it comes to the local aspect of kayaking, I believe that, to pretty much get people out there, I feel like some people just want to have more access to kayaks. So I pretty much told Wes, hey, why don't we pretty much do like a membership program where people can just sign up, just like a gym membership. People come and they'll just, pay their fee, a flat rate every month. And anytime they want to use the kayaks, gain the experience, more knowledge, they just, check us out. And so far, the feedback we've been getting is awesome. Also, we've had annual kayak races that were held about 10 years ago, and that pretty much faded away. And now we're at the stage where it's the right time, seeing that the interest is back from the general public. We can get people to come, and we have the perfect location for that, because
I'm not sure I understand.
Okay, so yeah, so speaking of the perfect location, every year we had the biggest dive festival, I would say, in Dominica, which is Dive Fest, and we would have traditional races with the canoes that the Kalinagos used before we did our circumnavigation. So bringing this modernized kayaks into the equation now is the perfect time. So
fantastic, great. Yeah, clearly you guys have your hands in lots of things. It sounds like you're doing, involved in the diving world. You support clubs who do open water swimming destinations. It sounds like you support athletes who are pushing the limits on that.
And let me just add one more thing, Hans. Also, we're also trying to bring a collaboration with hikers as well, because a lot of people, we're known for mainly hiking, but we have different hiking groups that are also interested in doing kayaking. So it's bringing diversity to adventure tourism. So
really great, awesome. I love it. Adventure tourism is. So help us get a picture of that. We're going to talk now about your circumnavigation specifically. We want to learn, what your journey was like. How did you prepare for the expedition? What are some of the key highlights? And what are some of the top learnings that you'd like to share with other people who are thinking about putting together trips, and how you might put those learnings into practice? But let's take those one at a time. But before we do that, I want to dive into a little bit. We're about to talk about this recent Dominica circumnavigation, the first recorded circumnavigation of a Caribbean treasure. Paint us a picture of Dominica from a paddler's perspective.
From a paddler's perspective, I'll start by saying it's your typical island when you come to Dominica on the West Coast. And when you go to the East Coast, Jurassic Park. Just from a paddler's perspective, because the mountains on the Atlantic coast are definitely, more rugged. The terrain is definitely more rugged. You get to see a lot more greenery because majority of the island's population is pretty much on the West Coast. So when you get out there, you feel like, oh man, have I just crossed the channel to get to another island? It feels that type of way. So Dominica is definitely built differently, and Dominica being very mountainous. And in the words of the Kalinagos, which are the true natives of this island, they actually call Dominica Waitu Kubuli, which means tall is her body. And once you get to the Atlantic coast, that's where you actually see how tall her body really is. So it is definitely like a Jurassic Park meets modern civilization.
Awesome, really great. So it sounds like it feels like it's a different place when you get from the shelter of the tall body of the mountain and get around to the windward side, the rugged Atlantic coast. It comes right out of the sea, and I can imagine, is it also cliffy, so you have limited abilities to pull out and more committed moves?
Yeah, definitely the Atlantic side, very committed coastline. there's not very many shores or bays to land on, and the few that exist have some pretty heavy shore breaks. The fisheries department has put up a few fishing jetties, and so you're almost guaranteed safe harbor in 3 places on the Atlantic side. But from a paddler's perspective, it's great because we've got the best of both worlds. We can cruise on the leeward side, or we can really push our limits on the Atlantic side. And we know we've got those 3 fishing jetties to launch out into the Atlantic. And where we are in Soufrière is even better because we're on the southern end of the island. So it's real calm in our bay. We go right into the Martinique channel, and the conditions gradually build for us as we go up the channel. So.
Oh, great. So you got a lot of control over the exposure and conditions on the island, going from 2 different worlds.
Yeah.
The calm leeward side to the rugged windward side. Yeah.
Yes.
And I imagine the vegetation changes a lot as you as the trade winds blow over that mountain, and the moisture variation would probably be observable.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. Very lush on the windward side.
And what are the waters like? Tell me about temperature and color and bottom and landings. What are we talking? Sand, gravel, a mixed?
We've got everything. You know, what's funny is we're always asked, what's the temperature like? What's the temperature like? We don't really pay attention to temperature here. It's warm. It's nice year round.
We could pretty much use one word for the temperature: refreshing.
Yeah.
If you don't know the temperature of the water, it says it all, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've got all the blues you can ask for,
Yeah.
all sorts of different shades of blue.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of black sand beaches, and we also have a lot of stony beaches as well. There are, we call white sand beaches. There's a couple up north, but they're really kind of brown sand beaches. So we've got a lot of diversity there.
Yeah, because even for our location right now, where we're situated in Soufrière, it is probably the most volcanic part of the entire island. So let's say you're kayaking or you're just swimming along the bay area in Soufrière, because of the volcanic nature, you'll tend to see or feel the difference in the water temperature, because certain places have vents releasing sulfuric gas and hot water. So you might just be swimming and you feel like you're in a jacuzzi 1 second and then back to normal temperature. You're like, so it switches. So it's definitely a different experience.
Yeah, some people reference Dominica. It's been nicknamed as the nature island of the Caribbean.
Yes.
For both of you who've traveled extensively through the Caribbean, how accurate would you say that statement is?
I would say it is extremely accurate.
Yeah, about 150%.
It's easy for you to get lost there if you do not have signs, if you're doing a hike. Yes, it's very easy for that to happen. So you have to, or if you're not going with a guide and you're just trying to find a natural site, yeah, most times, and it has happened on several occasions, but thankfully the locals always know where to go and find people. So
good. Well, let's dive in. We got a good question from Steve on the line here, and I think we're going to answer that. Let's dive into the circumnavigation itself, and I want to hear about, if you could describe the journey like a float plan. What did you do? What were the excitements? What were seen as some of the challenges? But let's start with the data, like a float plan. Steve asked, how many kilometers is the circumference of this island? It's not really round, so that's maybe not the best metric, but how many kilometers was your circumnavigation?
It was about 138 approximately. We started on the most southern point of the leeward side. We always wanted to circumnavigate Dominica from Soufrière and end up in Soufrière. That was always our goal. We'll talk later, but this was our 3rd attempt. So we headed. We went up the leeward side. We were scouting Windy for weeks for the perfect time to do it for the first time. We really wanted ideal conditions. So we went up probably, my notes here, about 27 kilometers, about halfway, a little bit more, maybe 2/3 of the way up the the leeward side. We were packed to camp the entire time, but our goal was to try and stay in accommodations if we could. And we actually managed to stay in accommodations, which was made the trip even that more enjoyable and fun.
So you,
The first night we had lobster.
so you took the beans and rice for a little paddle, did you?
Yeah, we took it around the island, just just for extra weight, build up some muscles. And the next day was a short day, so we really took our time. From there, we went to northern, like the second biggest city municipality in Dominica, Portsmouth. But we were able to take our time and just explore the coastline. We'd always heard about a rock called, well, I'll use right term, elephant's rear end. And we knew it when we found it.
Yeah.
But we found some beaches that we had no idea existed. And up towards Portsmouth, there's some lovely secluded beaches that you can only get to by boat. I imagine there's a few hiking trails, but definitely no roads too.
Yeah.
So we stayed in Portsmouth. Mind you, we were getting up about 3, 4 in the morning. And we tried to be on the water by 4 o'clock every day, because that time of year, it's just blazing hot by 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. So now the next day we got up. This was kind of like the unknown day, because we were going up the Martinique Channel, and the Martinique Channel has quite a not a Guadeloupe Channel. So Guadeloupe is to the north of us. So Guadeloupe Channel definitely has a reputation as being challenging. And the last time we scouted that channel, we went up on a day when Wendy said it was blowing 20 knots. We said, all right, let's just stay in the lee of the island and go up to the most northern point. And it was one of those moments where we're totally protected behind this real kind of like witch's hat looking rock.
Yeah,
and we paddled out 20 meters out into the channel. Next thing you know, there were 5 foot, 6 foot swells and just wind howling at us, steep cliffs off in the distance, no civilization for quite a while. We did that for a little while. We looked at each other. We said, "You had enough? All right, let's go back."
So that was on the scouting trip.
That was on the scouting trip. We had much better conditions.
Yeah. So one of the things you learned, it sounds like, is that the normal trade winds there can present differently because of the geography and the currents in the channel.
Oh, definitely.
that's right.
Definitely. So that's why we learned we had to go on a very calm day, which we did. And they have a saying out here, behind God's back. And when we went around the northern tip of Dominica, we felt like we were behind God's back.
Yeah.
Just these majestic cliffs rising out of the sea, several waterfalls just cascading, off 100, 200 foot cliffs down into the sea. And luckily the current wasn't that bad. And we hardly spoke the whole way. We were just in awe. And then when we got around what we call the head of Dominica down towards the shoulder, we experienced quite a bit of current at that point in time. We really had to check our forward
And swells.
momentum and swell.
Yeah.
We had to change course a bit, stay a little bit closer to shore, into a little bit more protected area. But then that day, 20 some odd kilometers. And then we had, I wouldn't say it was like heavy surf that day landing, but there was very shallow waters. And luckily there was a rip current that we took right to the place we were staying. It was incredible. Just by luck.
Led us directly to where we were
Right
staying.
to where we were going. Otherwise we would have had, and we knew that we'd have to go another couple kilometers up and then go to shore and come back down. So that takes us to, that was day 2. No, that would have been day 3, behind God's back. Day 4 now, we got up early again, and now we're going down the Windward, the Atlantic coast. And we know that there's not very many takeouts. So we got up very early. We're heading out. Beautiful, beautiful day. And we passed the Kayak territory. So Kerry spoke earlier. Dominica is the only island that still has a Kalinago community.
And pure descendants of the Caribbeans as well.
Yeah.
Really great.
And so we passed that along that coast, and that was phenomenal for us. They were all out fishing that day because the conditions were so good. We must have been 60 of them out on the cliffs.
Oh yeah.
And they were a welcome sight because we knew that there was no civilization around aside from seeing them.
It was good seeing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did about 34 kilometers that day. That was our longest day, about 6.5 hours. Heavy shore break there, tricky. We'll talk about that later on. And then the next morning we had to get up really early and portage and get our kayaks to the safest place to launch from, easiest place to launch from. And then we headed home that day. We got quite a bit late start, so heat was a major issue that last day. Luckily, about halfway home, we stopped at one of the fishing jetties I spoke about. And we were able to cool off under their outdoor shower.
Had a sandwich.
Yeah, had a sandwich and went home.
That
Yeah.
was it.
Yeah. So
So
on
this is-
average, 20 to 30 kilometers a day, anywhere from 3.5 to 6.5 hours a day on the sea.
And it was a 5-day trip.
5-day trip. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. One of the questions that's come up around around food is if somebody's paddling around Dominica, what are your thoughts on the availability of either fishing or foraging versus taking it all with you?
Oh, definitely. You're talking to the man right here. This guy is an expert speargun fisherman.
Yeah.
Whenever we kayak on the Atlantic, he's always cursing, say he wants his speargun with him.
Yeah. So in terms of fishing, I mean, like we have an abundance of lionfish, which is an invasive species. And the diving community, we encourage anyone from the fisher folks to the general public to eat lionfish because they're definitely a menace to the entire marine ecosystem.
Yeah, they don't have any natural predators
Predators as
and they breed like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be one option as well. Another option would be because of Dominica being so, how would I put it, like just pretty much unknown. Certain places that you go, it's like you have never seen places like that. Like Wes said, waterfalls, cascading on the beaches. A lot of them we never saw before, and pretty much people don't know about these places. But along the coast, we get to see so much vegetation, and it like in the form of coconuts, all these different things. So you can definitely survive anywhere in Dominica.
Good. Well, I hope that answers your question, Paul, but it's amazing to me that a local Dominican like yourself on such a small island could paddle around it and discover things for the first time that you didn't know existed, like beaches or waterfalls. That speaks wonders to the island and the opportunities there for exploration.
Yeah.
So you've helped unpack the float plan. It sounds like it was a really pretty small commitment in terms of time, although this was the first circumnavigation of this island that's been recorded, and it was your third attempt. Why is that? What are the challenges?
I'd say the weather. We get lots of wind here. So the first time we knew it was going to be windy on the Atlantic when we went out. But when we got out there with fully loaded kayaks, we decided that it was either going to be a very long week fighting the wind or we could turn around and wait for a little bit. And our forward momentum was pretty slow. I mean, we'd like to think we could have muscled it, but our float plan would have changed significantly. I'd paddled in winds like that before in Jamaica, but Jamaica's in the middle of the Caribbean Sea. There's definitely something a bit different with the wind forecasts out here in Dominica with being on the Atlantic.
Yeah, they don't call them the Windward Islands for nothing. So it sounds
That's
like one of the things you were in touch with as a navigator is you were in touch with your velocity made good as you're traveling, and you recognize that you simply couldn't meet your objectives at the rate that you were going, and it was prudent to just restart. But that's also, it sounds like it's deterred others from doing that, and it sounds like even the local tribes fish from the rocks on the Atlantic side.
Yes. But and just to add to the reason why this was the first recorded circumnavigation in modern day, I would say is because before, the kayaks that were used and what we're accustomed to were never touring kayaks. They were never these type of kayaks. It was always the sit on tops, and that was only for recreational. So you could only do a limited amount of, distance in those kayaks.
Okay, so this is really the first in modern time, is when you've really got the right boats that have the seaworthiness and the speed to actually be able to paddle against the wind in the trades.
Yes, and that's what got me excited. I was like, okay, I've never used these ones. Yeah, I think I can do it.
Excellent. Well, good. That's really great. I invite anybody who's got questions specific about the circumnavigation to populate the chat room with it right now. Let's dive into a couple of things about this. How did you train and prepare for this expedition?
Well, the first thing is finding out the hard way, which we did. And what I mean by that is just going out there and just trying out for ourselves and just learning along the way, saying, okay, we did this wrong, we did that wrong. That was on our first 2 attempts. And certainly you have to include the local fishermen. They have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the coastal areas, especially on the Atlantic side in the Windward area. So they actually gave us a lot of tips as well. And yes.
So it sounds like 2 things. One is the importance of local knowledge will really help you prepare for the expedition. And it sounds like the other thing is you basically, develop good judgment from poor experiences by going out and getting schooled. What were some of the key things that you feel like that you learned in your first couple of attempts that you were able to change moving into your successful attempt?
Well, one was the first attempt we left and we immediately went around the southern tip of the island and started going up the Atlantic coast. We experienced, even in light winds, we experienced heavy current because, as the fishermen explained, that the Atlantic just hits Dominica on the windward side and then splits. It starts pushing south or north. And so after some discussions about what we experienced, that's when we made the decision to go up the leeward side around the north and down, because we'd be more of the current would be working to our advantage based on their recommendations of where about it split. The other thing, we got late starts, and the heat really got to us twice. So we were more leaving about as late as 6, 7, getting down the beach by 6, on the water by 7:30. That's just, for circumnavigation this time of year, that's just too late. You have to be down there ready at 4 o'clock. So that was another one. And like, Kerry said, there was one time when we didn't really plan the water right too, because we thought we didn't have to carry so much because we were going to reach our destination on our float plan. We ended up cutting that short and camping for the night, and we had to rely on coconuts.
The water.
Yeah.
So there are some logistics, I've been a little bit rusty with expedition planning, and but now that we've got that more dialed in now.
Okay, great, awesome. So it sounds like a lot of learning that happened in your original preparations include not only how to make appropriate weather calls by getting out there and just putting your nose out in it, but also learning from how to provision better and having extra provisions on some of your vital elements like water. While not as important in Dominica, it sounds like, because you can always just drink from the young nuts, but in other places that would be super important.
Yeah.
Okay. Now Bob asked he asked a question, do you have any photos of the trip? And I've put a couple of links into the press that you received internationally from this circumnavigation. I put in the Loop News article and the OMA News article.
Emo News, yeah.
Emo News, yeah. Okay, great. Any other place you'd recommend Bob goes or anybody else can goes to get some photos of this?
Or you can check out our Instagram. We put up quite a few photos on that. So I'm at Mr. West Kayak on Instagram, Mr. West Kayak. That's kind of my nickname, Mr. West in the Caribbean.
Okay.
And then also Super Outdoor Center on Instagram and Facebook. We've got quite a few photos up there.
Okay, great. I'll put this. Great. I'm gonna share those links right now to the guest house Instagram in the chat. We'll go with that. We'll share some more links later, but just wanted to catch Bob's question there. So let's move on then to the trip. Sounds like you learned a lot from preparation and training. Now that it's behind you, what are some of the key highlights?
Well, I would say some of the key highlights for me was getting to experience, the different sides of Dominica. Like, for example, when you get to the Atlantic side, like I said, the vegetation, everything there is so lush because you hardly have any pollution. So it looks very, very green, very, very untouched, unspoiled. So you get that, that view of an island like Dominicans still say today, if Christopher Columbus had to reveal Dominica, he would still recognize Dominica because there isn't a lot of civilization on the east coast, and so that was pretty much one of the key highlights for me, and also to see a lot of turtles, sharks, dolphins, just in abundance, the amount of underwater life that was surrounding us all the time. So that was definitely some of the key highlights for me.
Fantastic.
I think for me, it was, passing that Kalinago territory and being out at sea, and right about there, you've got the mountain range behind the Kalinago territory is just incredible. And it's just a humbling experience, to think, well, the Kalinagos did this in hand carved canoes, paddling. And here we are with all our gear, we got our GPS, our friends are following us, we got our phones, we got our trackers on. And then to see them out all over the cliffs, got Kerry and I thinking is that we wanted to incorporate that history into our outdoor center. So afterwards, we made the links. We went to the Kalinago territory, we met with a boat builder who's making us a traditional Kalinago canoe. And we plan that as having that as part of our center to show people this is what early paddling was like in Dominica, and have the paddles there. So to me, that was a highlight to really make that connection with the Kalinago during, thinking about it in the trip and having it manifest afterwards.
That's really great. Wow, what a treasure this Dominica is. I can't wait to go myself. What are some of the top learnings that you feel like you want to share with this audience of paddlers that might be transferable into their paddling scenarios?
Yeah, so, when you've had a long day of paddling and you know that you have a potential heavy shore break, that you're gonna surf landing, we learned that on both of our trips, on 2 of our attempts, you really gotta plan to rest up, be patient at that surf break, bring your water, hydrate, eat your food, take that rest that you need, and make sure that you're making. We got split up in one of them, and it all worked out. But it's something that we wouldn't do again. No. And I think it was, it was a bit had to do with being tired, and just wanting wanting to get ashore. You've had a long day. You're like, all right, it's a big surf.
And you're pretty much impatient at that time, and we separated for a brief moment, and then in that brief moment anything can happen, especially when you're in the Atlantic, so we learned that valuable lesson. Always stick together, and ensure that we both get to shore safely.
Yeah. So some of the key learnings is really the importance of pod management as a team on the water is critical, particularly when you're entering surf zones or when you're in challenging conditions. I would recommend, and as a practice, we teach certainly really stringent pod management practices at all times, because it's so easy to do when it's easy. That you need to practice, and it's easy to practice then, and it's so hard to do when you are in more challenging conditions. But the other big learning, it sounds like, is the importance of having good surf landing and launch skills for when you do need them. I know at TRAK we teach a program in the Pacific Northwest here on a surf camp specifically to teach boaters how to appropriately do surf launches and surf landings, because it's so common that you can go out on a fine day and get caught out as conditions build, that you find yourself having to do a surf landing unexpectedly. And knowing how to be patient with it, knowing how to read the water, knowing how to stay together and orchestrate that is critical to success. So really great learnings there.
And I think having that dialed in so that after you've done the 4 or 5 hours, it becomes second nature. I think that was the key for us, is that after the 4 or 5 hours, it was like, all right.
Because after that experience, the following morning when we had to lunch, we definitely approached it differently.
Yeah.
And we were like, what we experienced yesterday, we do not want to go back and experience that. So
I think the other great learning that you're pointing to really in terms of self-care is about how to recognize the subjective hazards, right? What is it about us in terms of our anxiety or our comfort level or our rest or nutrition or hydration? Being able to check in on those things with some degree of confidence and accuracy of your assessment is critical. And being able to communicate that with your team, it sounds like is vital. So let me ask you this then, from those learnings, how do you think you'll put some of those learnings into practice as guides and educators on the island, teaching your tourists and local folks to paddle? Because I know that one of your objectives with the center is to help teach some of the folks that are locally in the tourist industry how to actually have the skills to work with the visitors who are coming to the island who want to kayak it. How will you teach those things? How will we put those learnings into practice?
One of the main things we did when we went up the leeward side is we were looking for a good place to introduce surf, because our scouting, to date or prior to that had been, well, there's either very little surf or there's very big surf. There's not much in between. So one of the main objectives going up the leeward side was like, let's find somewhere where we can teach someone. And luckily we found somewhere at the mouth of a river, Layu River. And we think it's a great place to learn, rather than having to, take someone's skill level to a certain point and then just have them start learning in big surf.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So it sounds like you've found a place not only to practice for yourselves that presents an appropriate challenge, but ways that you can actually develop a progression with those that you work with, so they can be more confident and competent in the water and help each other. Yeah,
definitely.
Really great. Let me ask you this question then: for paddlers interested in a Caribbean paddling trip, what guidance would you offer? And one of the specific questions comes up from Nancy is, for paddling and hiking trips, are there any times of the year to avoid or best times to go?
First question.
All right. I'll let Kerry take the second part. So advice is get a TRAK kayak, because not everybody is going to have a good sea touring kayak for you to rent. That's been my experience. I lived in St. Lucia for a number of years, and I traveled the island as I traveled. So that's why I was really excited to partner with TRAK. But aside from that, then it's hard to find kayakers and get information. So then sailors are a great source of information about currents and winds and that type of thing. So I made a network of friends along the islands because I just couldn't find kayakers to network with.
Yeah.
And you will hear a lot about safety, camping and that type of thing in the Caribbean. And yeah, there are safety concerns, I think, worldwide, but in the Caribbean especially, but it can be done. It can be done safely. Camping trips can be done, but it's getting the right local knowledge and the right advice prior to the trip. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Great. To answer the question for Nancy specifically,
Yes.
I'll put a link into the chat room right now, which is a TRAK trip that we're putting together with Weston and Kerry. And we've chosen to run that trip, one in early May, one in late May, and one in June. And so you can check that out. It describes that trip, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But to answer the question, I guess for Nancy, is there anything
Nancy.
else you'd add to that for best times of year?
Best time of the year is definitely out of the hurricane season, because during the hurricane season, on an annual basis, we get about 300 to 400 inches of rain in the middle of the island, which is considered to be like the forest, the rainforest. Down here in the south, we get about 120 something inches. So the rain, because we're so mountainous, and a lot of the trails we're prone to landslides, a lot of the trails can get washed out because of heavy rainfall. So if you pretty much come at a time where it's not really the peak of the hurricane season, so that would be a good time. But with global warming and climate change, it's hard to really say if it's going to be a heavy week of rainfall. So I would say the main thing is to get somebody that is knowledgeable of all the trails. So having a very well-informed and experienced guide will be one of the main things. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So lean on that first lesson that you guys use, which is local knowledge.
That's right. That's right.
Access. Now, when you say hurricane season, just for clarity for Nancy, what you're talking about is basically August, September, October.
About that time
Yeah.
of year. Yes.
Yeah, so-
Yeah, the beginning and end tend to be all right,
Yeah.
but September is a worrisome month.
Which is
here.
the peak of the hurricane season.
Yeah. So avoid September and be cautious with August and October.
Yeah, if
Definitely.
you do come around that time, just make sure that you're going with an experienced and well-informed guide.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Hope that answers your question, Nancy. Any other guidance you'd offer for folks interested in a Caribbean paddling trip besides signing up for the TRAK trip or using local guides and avoiding hurricane season?
I think those are the main
Yeah,
things.
these are the main points.
Yeah, definitely. It's
So,
a great place to paddle. I've paddled in Grenada, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Dominica, the Bahamas, and the Caribbean is it's phenomenal.
While we're talking about this TRAK trip, why don't you tell us a little bit about that? I know you two have put together an itinerary that's a kind of a mixed offering of culture and paddling and exploration. Give us in just about a quick soundbite on how you see that trip playing out and what you're excited about as islanders to share with visitors.
It's got the there's one day where Kerry will kill some lionfish and we'll roast them right on the beach and have some roast breadfruit with that. So we'll have a little bit of that. We've got the Atlantic coast thrown in there. Like I said, where we are, it's beautiful because we can leave our base, we can be in the calm, practice everything in the calm, then we can go right into the Martinique Channel, and we'll go as far up that as we are comfortable. And then Kerry's got some good culture for us.
Take you to secluded areas on the coastal areas where also it is they are marine protected areas. You'll get a chance to see some of our conservation work that we're doing in terms of, protecting the turtles, the sea turtles, some of the areas on the coastal area where the turtles come to lay their nest. It's also part of that experience as well. Yeah, there's a lot. And you also get to interact with different locals, and everywhere you go, there's definitely, even though Dominica, collectively, we all have different, traditions, but when you go to different parts of Dominica, you get to experience that difference that you never experienced. We're here in Soufriere, and everywhere seems to be different, but the people, the same reception that you received in Soufriere, you'll be getting that, but then in terms of what they eat and pretty much how they do certain things, like for example, once you get to the Kalinagos, that Kalinago territory, the main thing is doing handcrafted, different things, and it's just gonna be a different experience every time you go out with us. It's not gonna be like the same day, and you just feel like every time you put yourself in a kayak and you get to another place, you feel like you're going to another island, because everywhere is like the same reception, but you get to see something different. You get to learn something different.
You'll be introduced to Caribbean liming. So that's just having a good time. Our place is right on the bayfront. Music, roast food, seafood, and then our friend down the road has a nice bar, and he's promised to put on a reggae night for us, which happens every other Thursday. But no matter what, he'll throw it the Thursday we're here.
Okay, cool. So it sounds like this trip is really a base camp scenario out of the guest house, and we'll visit the highlights of the island, and we'll focus on the subtleties of culture on the island from a native Dominican's perspective, conservation and kayaking, all topped off with reggae dance party. And
we have some warm sulfur springs, 5-minute walk from the guest house to ease those muscles from kayaking at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, Nancy's got a question. She's like, are the kayaks supplied for the trip? Yes, Nancy. In full transparency, Weston and Kerry are TRAK pilots, and they have invested in a fleet of boats. And so you can either take your own, or you can use the ones that they have for that trip. Really great. This has been fantastic to connect with you around this trip. In closing, what would both of you offer paddlers thinking or planning a trip that might seem really ambitious or out of their comfort zone? How can they bridge that gap? How can they go from, a non-swimmer to a circumnavigator?
Go ahead.
You start.
Okay. Well, one of the main things is finding a good area of interest, let's say, of like where you are right now in your life. If you feel like you need something that can pretty much get you through, it could be a mental phase that you're going through. I feel like this is one of the things that you can do, because it certainly helped me cope with just low self-esteem, as I mentioned earlier. And also it helped me just gain a lot of confidence. And if you're planning to come to Dominica, what you're going to experience is certainly a different world, a different vibe, different culture. Everyone here is just pretty much, very friendly, very warm and welcoming. And if you force you to do something, we try to gradually get you to one stage to the next, and then gradually you'll be like we said, second nature. It just comes to you, and you don't even feel like, oh, I couldn't do that, and now I'm doing it. It's like, oh, I could have done this all the time. You're gonna feel a little cocky after a while. That's how it is. So I feel like Dominica is the perfect place for that, because you have the people here. It's like we pretty much that you are going through right now, and we've been there, so it's easier for us to pretty much translate that into what you want to do and help you get there eventually, and you will become a professional in no time, guaranteed.
Okay, Kerry, that's so great.
Yeah,
That's full circle. It takes us right back to the beginning of this with the idea of real risk versus perceived risk, and that to really take appropriate challenges out of your comfort zone can really help you accelerate your learning process.
Sure.
Really fantastic, and that translates to other parts of your life. I want to thank both of you gentlemen for sharing your story. I want to thank you for your time today with connecting with our community. I want to thank you for the work that you do in the world, connecting cultures and sharing the treasure of the Caribbean with both visitors and for the locals, sharing kayaking with them and helping them live a life unleashed. It's so great to see your work in the world. And we look
Thank you,
forward to
thank
connecting with you on the beaches and on the island of the Dominica really soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. So for folks that want to get in touch with you, I want to place a couple of links here. I want to put in the guest house social media links. It sounds like that's where Weston, you place information on what's going on in Dominica and ways that they can connect with the guest house for interests like ocean swimming or free diving or hiking. They can just come hang out with you there.
Yeah, definitely.
And those social media channels are really great for kind of seeing what's up there. For getting in touch with you directly, Weston, would you suggest that connecting with you on Facebook is the way to do that?
Yeah, get in touch with me on Facebook.
Okay.
Definitely.
I just put a link in the chat to your Facebook link, Weston Moses. And how about you, Kerry? Would you recommend the same thing, the connecting with you on Facebook?
Yeah, certainly. Anyone that wants to, keep in touch and find out more, definitely you can check me out on my Facebook page at Kerry Alleyne and directly message me. Also on Instagram at Kerry_Alleyne. And yeah, I'm always willing to share whatever information there is to share that is valuable information. Yes.
Yeah, I think we forgot to mention that Kerry is a warden in Soufriere for the marine protected area there.
Yes.
So very knowledgeable.
Yeah,
Well,
recently got promoted to chief warden officer.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's the first one.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great. Well, great to have you on the show, Warden. We look forward to working with you in Dominica. At this point in the program, I'd love just to open it up for questions then. Either folks can just unmute and ask questions, or you can pull it into the chat. Love to hear any feedback or questions specifically. Weston, for you and Kerry, I'm hearing some comments in the chat room here. Great webinar. Thanks for the information is what we're hearing. Michael's got to go. He's got to go close out his old partner meeting here. Good luck with that, Michael.
See you, Michael.
Take care.
If they need a graduation present, don't underestimate the value of a TRAK trip in the Caribbean. Better than a gold watch.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All
Good.
right.
Awesome. Couple acknowledgements I'd like to make. Kathy and Jeff Schmidt are on the line. I know you guys are pilots and probably candidates to go to Dominica. We do have a scouting trip running in March that's exclusive for TRAK pilots that's going to put together these trips in May and June. And we haven't maybe talked to you about this yet, Jeff, but this would be a great trip for you and Kathy.
That's why we're on today. It sounds very interesting.
Awesome. Excellent.
All right.
We'd like to give a shout out to Jamie is on the call, and she wrote the article. She's a good friend of ours, and she's been paddling with us. She wrote the article for Emo News. Yeah,
Oh,
so
great.
try and take a look at that. And thank you, Jamie, for helping us out.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Jamie. We did put a link to that article in the chat here, and yeah, really well written and so great to see that. I'm going to put this link in there again so that it's top of mind for folks. And if you're just joining us, you'll see it there. The link once again to the Emo News article. Yeah, really great. Awesome. All right. I'm not hearing any other questions or seeing them in the chat. So I think with that, we're going to sign off here. I want to thank you once again. Really great to connect with you guys. Take care and look forward to the reggae party when we hang out next.
Yeah, man.
Definitely.
Yeah,
See you
man.
then.
Thanks for the great presentation, guys.
All
Yeah,
right,
you're
man.
welcome.
That was
Well,
awesome.
Anytime.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
be dreaming about spearfishing lionfish now and
Oh,
Jamaican or reggae dance parties.
all right,
Yeah.
all right, all right.
Yeah.
Catch,
Yeah.
catch
for
you
the-
down south sometime. Thanks.
And yeah, man. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Good job.
Yeah. For this trip, you had me at roasted lionfish.
No,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that's one of the highlights. And the thing about it is, we do not do it. We can do it by ourselves, but if you want to participate, it's like, it's a free for all. You want to come and just do it. You want to help. I mean, it's just local vibe. It's like tradition, what we used to do as kids, and it has stuck with us for generations. So we do the same thing. And on that trip, so you get you feel like you're on a survival series,
Yeah.
You gotta hunt for your food, and it's so, yeah, man, really natural.
Human.
vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So human.
yeah.
Carrie, when
Thanks,
you're
Carrie.
fishing, when you're hunting lionfish, do you use a Hawaiian sling or do you use a spear gun or
Full
how do you-
spear.
a
Full
pole
spear.
spear? Yeah, great,
Yes.
awesome.
Nice.
And that's just a straight spear, or do you have like a rubber band that goes around your wrist?
There's a rubber band at the
Yeah.
end. Yes.
Yeah. Great. I could use about 6 days of just like snorkeling and hunting lionfish. In fact,
Absolutely.
when I come, I just want to do that.
As we speak, I just came from doing that not so long ago. Yeah.
Do you
And then-
guys have like so you mentioned the roasted lionfish, but do you do like any kind of ceviche?
Our friends have done ceviche. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We stick to the roasted on the fire, but yeah, you
Yeah.
can definitely do a nice mango
Yeah.
ceviche.
As well. Yeah, man.
Cool. Kerry, West.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, lots of feedback in the chat room, lots of thank yous. So once again, we'll sign off here, but thanks a lot, guys. And
Okay.
You're
have a
welcome.
great rest of your day. Ciao.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thanks,
Good,
guys.
everybody.